Hi everyone, Rachel here. Welcome to another episode of that's such a hard thing to say, by the way, the Ditch the Diet podcast. Very warm welcome to another episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are a long-term listener, I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming back and listening to another episode. If you haven't already done so, please could you leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening to the podcast, whether that's iTunes or Spotify. I would really appreciate it, and I really do appreciate that you are listening to every single episode. Thank you. If you're a brand new listener to the show, welcome. I'm really glad that you found us. I'm sure this is going to become your favourite weekly podcast. My name is Rachael Watson. I am your host, and I'm also the creator and head coach at the Ditch the Diet Academy, which is a membership site that is your alternative to a lifetime of slimming clubs, where we teach you the exact steps to take from A to B to learn how to quit dieting forever, to improve your relationship with food and get your body confidence back. You can check that out at ditchthedietacademy.com, and I'll be back at the end of the podcast to tell you a bit more about that. So I have a really special episode for you today with a fellow Glaswegian, Dr Aria Danesh, who is a clinical psychologist specialising in weight management and behaviour change. And we are discussing the downsides of dieting, the data behind dieting, and why you might want to consider leaving the diet culture behind. In this episode, we talk about things like the health risks of dieting, the long-term detrimental effects of dieting on your health, both physical and mental. But on a positive note, we also chat about all of the ways that you can leave dieting behind and completely transform your life, your health, your weight, your body, and your confidence without ever counting another thing ever again. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I really enjoyed speaking to Aria, and I'll be back at the end to tell you a little bit more about where you can find out more about him. Alright, let's get going. So we're going to talk about the sort of subject of do diets make you fatter? What do they do? What are these? What do diets actually do long term to your health and your behaviour and things? But before we even get into any of that, it would be a great idea if we could get a little introduction from you. So who are you and what do you do?
My name is Aria, and I'm a doctor in clinical psychology. And so essentially that means that my focus is on the scientific study of the mind and how that can influence and dictate your behaviour. Mm-hmm. And my areas of expertise are sustainable weight loss and long-term health. So in essence, I help people step off the diet treadmill, start to achieve a healthy mind and body that they feel really good about, and then stay mentally and physically fit.
How long have you been doing this for?
I've always had a passion for the mind and understanding how that has a big impact on just what you do on a day-to-day basis. And I've always wanted to stay healthy. In terms of the academics of it, I did a 4-year degree in psychology at St Andrews, and then I worked for a few years as an assistant psychologist, and then I did my doctorate in psychology at UCL in London, which was 3 years, and that's when I was really looking at this emerging field of weight loss maintenance, mm-hmm. in terms of how can you actually lose weight but then keep it off for the long term.
Yeah, and what I'm really interested in talking to you about today is the sort of the science behind it and the real statistics and the real data, because in this industry there is, as you will know, I've been working in the weight loss industry in some way, shape or form, whether that's been teaching fitness classes right up to what I'm doing now for almost a decade, and every single day there is like another news article or, you know, another coach or someone shouting, this is the best method, no, this is the best method. But I'm a bit of a science geek as well, and it's really important to me that the message that I give out to people is underpinned by real statistics, real science, because I want people to get results in the long term, and that's what attracted me to sort of get in touch with you, because just from reading your content online and your website as well, it seems that everything you do is underpinned by real knowledge and not by, you know, this pseudoscience world that we live in nowadays when it comes to fitness, health and nutrition.
Yes, I'm preaching from the same book. I prefer to take an evidence-based approach to nutrition, to exercise, to behaviour, because I think it's that balance. On the one hand, whenever you have the wonderful thing about solid science is it essentially gives you the best available evidence to then make informed decisions. Mm-hmm. And then you can apply that to your life and you can tailor it and you can find what works for you. Mm-hmm. But like you're saying, the difficulty is it's such a crowded, noisy place. Mm-hmm. And there's so much conflicting, contrasting information that people are often telling you they're confused because they're reading, you know, in terms of nutrition, you know, definitely go low fat, definitely go low sugar, go high protein, you know, don't eat it in the morning, eat it at different times of the day, fast, don't. And it's mind-boggling. So I think if we can strip it back to basics, look at what the science says, and then try and take an approach where we're on solid ground, then you've got the best chance of being successful.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it does, you know, it comes down to the fact that there are so many different ways to dress up the fact that in order to lose weight, we have to, number one, focus on improving our health, and number two, you know, be in some form of energy deficit. But there are so many ways of doing that there is no right or wrong way. It's just finding a way that works for you. But what's interesting is that you know, this statistic, I have no idea where it comes from, but you hear it all the time that the vast majority of people that go on any sort of extreme diet, or even not even an extreme diet, but some sort of diet, end up regaining what they've lost plus adding extra.
Yes.
And I think that it doesn't matter how many times you address what you eat and how you move and how you exercise, if you don't address the underlying issue that's causing you to want to overeat or causing lack of movement, or, you know, the behaviours that you display, it's going to be very difficult to change habits if you don't address the sort of the root cause, I suppose. And I often explain to people that going on a diet is a bit like putting a band-aid over a really, really deep cut and just expecting it to heal. What are your thoughts on the statement, you can't change your body until you change your mind?
I think that's a lovely phrase. It's a lovely way of pitching it. It's actually, that's very similar to one of my favourite quotes is by George Bernard Shaw, and he said that progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. And what I continually remind myself and my clients is that the mind is the source of all our actions. Mm-hmm. So every decision we make about what to eat, when to eat, whether to exercise or not, it starts in the mind. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of contrasting information out there, but then at the same time, a lot of people have a lot of knowledge as well and information. And even on a basic level, they might know that they need to eat less or eat better or exercise more, but then there's a gap between what they know and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And what my research found is what's between that gap is our psychology. It's our thoughts, our emotions, like you're saying. It's the subconscious influences of the people and the places around us. And really just honing back into that point you're making, that really, unless you're able to manage these internal thoughts and feelings that cause you to turn towards food in the first place, then after a while you'll end up going back to, you know, binge eating on junk food, or continually snacking through the day and feeling out of control, or eating it even whenever you're really full. Mm-hmm. And so that's the approach that I take, and with my fit method is to address these underlying factors that are maintaining your current situation, including the most powerful of them all, which is your emotions and your way of thinking. Because whenever you have your mind in the right place, you can just make better choices more easily. And so that's, like you, that's something I'm really passionate about, is empowering people to understand their own psychology so that they can have a little bit more control over their actions, become a little bit healthier every day, and hopefully, reach the end of a long, fulfilling life where they don't have any regrets about their health.
Yeah, that's exactly the way that I think as well. And
yeah,
it's nice to talk to someone who is on the same wavelength.
I think it's fantastic. It's so nice because there's so much focus on diets and deprivation and restriction, and actually I think that's why I'm such a huge fan of what you're doing, is because you're shifting the conversation and you're helping to shape the landscape, so actually our focus is going back to
Are you still there?
Focusing on the number and the scales.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I just lost you for a wee second there. The connection dropped.
Oh,
it's all right.
Yeah. No, I can just repeat the last bit, and that's why I'm a huge fan of what you're doing, because you're helping to shift the conversation and shape the landscape so that people can see that you can have a life outside of dieting, outside of that roller coaster, where you're really just building a happy, meaningful, active lifestyle, and the byproduct of that is a weight loss.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's so refreshing. So refreshing. So can you tell me a little bit about what exactly does it mean for someone to start off with changing their behaviour? So what types of behaviour change do you see need the most work in people that have been struggling with yo-yo dieting for such a long time?
What I see most commonly is that my clients will often describe their eating as out of control at times. So they might have periods when they've got a really tight rein over what they eat, but then they, inverted commas, fall off the wagon and their eating just goes from one extreme to the other. And it's this almost feeling that reason flies out the window, and even though they know on paper what they should be doing, they just feel as they don't have the control and they can't help it. And that's really tough because, a lot of the time people are, in their own eyes, successful in different areas of their lives, whether or not that's, professionally or in terms of being a good friend or a good mum or dad. But then there's this one area of their life that they just feel like they don't have control over, and there can be a huge sense of shame and guilt about that. And they might think, what's wrong with me? Because in terms of looking at behaviors, it might be impulse eating, just picking food up and eating it throughout the day, eating even when you're full, stress eating, emotional overeating, thinking about food all the time, like we're saying, restricting eating and then binging, or having really tough late night food cravings, and then feeling guilty about eating certain foods, or anxious about going to social events, or even like a work buffet and worrying about that, being concerned about what others would think of them if they knew the truth about them. And so it's all these different behaviors combined that people often want help to address, so that they can really change that aspect and just have more peace and ease in their life at the same time.
And why do you think it is that we find it so hard to stick to a diet?
At the core of it, I think the bottom line is that most diets are rigid and unsustainable. And so whenever we look at what happens in the body, when you start to lose weight, your body actually responds physiologically by resisting weight loss. So your metabolism becomes more efficient, and it essentially runs on fewer calories.
Mm-hmm.
So if you lose weight and you want to maintain that weight loss, you have to maintain any changes that you've made to your eating and exercise.
Mm.
But on average, weight loss attempts last about 4 to 6 weeks. And what seems to be the case is that you might want to follow, a really strict diet plan or make drastic changes for a month or so, but then you'll go back to your old eating habits and the weight comes back on.
Mm-hmm.
And tied into it is this other core reason, and that diets generally restrict foods. So there's usually a demon, they'll demonize a particular food group. Either carbohydrates are evil, or fats are the worst thing that you can do. Mm-hmm. And research actually shows that whenever you ban a food, that actually backfires, and it leads to people liking that item more, wanting it more, and eating more of it. Mm-hmm. So there's a study that was published in the journal Appetite, and it found that when you take a group of people and then you ban them or prohibited them from eating chocolate, the next day they ended up eating about 133% more.
Wow.
Which is amazing when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So whenever you deprive yourself, that's essentially the perfect way to then induce this cycle of binging, restricting, and then gaining more weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I see all the time.
That's something that you can relate to. You see the people coming to you and saying that it's just rigid, it's unsustainable, and there's that sense of deprivation.
Yeah. I mean, the people that come to me are generally people who are literally at their wits' end by the point that they come to me. It's wits' end. I've been on a diet for my entire life, and they come to me, and sometimes I even hear words and phrases like, "I'm actually scared to eat this food now because I restricted it for so long. I'm scared to eat it in case I've real believed perceived fear of waking up the next day and having regained all the weight that they've lost, or and it's something that frustrates me so much because I've been there, I've been that person, and now I'm on the other side of it, and I just wish I could press the fast forward button for these people, so that they, so that the work that needs to be done is done, and they can actually see how different it can be. And I think one of the biggest problems I come up against when I'm introducing a new member and to ditch the diet is for them to actually be able to visualize ever being away from that feeling of counting something or obsessively weighing food or obsessively exercising, and actually being able to see that sort of end result is sort of, they can't visualize it because they've never experienced it before. And
it's not only frustrating, it's also it just feels wrong. And it's almost tragic that, and it's the same with clients I've spoken to, and people have literally spent their entire lifetimes on diets. I've spoken to someone the other day that's saying they've been on a diet for the last 50 years since being 16. That it's been continual. And like you're saying, because it's been that person's experience, that it often leads to the person thinking, well, how can I ever be any different, or how can I ever actually lose weight but keep it off? Because they've never done it before. How can I step away from calorie counting or macro counting or tracking points? And as a psychologist, one of the things that hurts me most as well is seeing the impact that sort of way of living and dieting has on your emotional well-being. And how, when you're repeatedly losing weight and then repeatedly regaining it hits your self-esteem, it hits your self-confidence. It makes you think that actually long-term change isn't possible. It makes you doubt yourself. And we know from the research, that studies show that yo-yo dieters are more likely to experience loss of control, to feel helpless about the situation, and just generally people end up so frustrated, so upset with themselves, and so afraid, like you're saying, that they'll never be able to change their way of living, and believing that they're weak-willed as well, when often what I go back to is that the person you have not failed, the diet failed. It's an ineffective, counterproductive strategy, and it's not your fault. There is a different way. It will take time to just step away from dieting.
Yeah. You mentioned something there that I really wanted to ask what your opinion is on, from a psychology point of view, and even if perhaps you might have experienced some clients that might be in this position, but something that I see nowadays that's really, really common, apart from the obvious things like Slimming World, Weight Watchers, other slimming clubs, like meal replacements, all these kind of things that are kind of typically quite well-known diets, is the sort of growth of, or explosion of, plans where people will give you a set of calories and macros, and then you have to obsessively track these in order to lose weight. Now, I think I'm possibly the only coach in my space that is very resistant to this, because I can't really see the difference between counting points, counting checks, or whatever the hell you call them these days, and obsessively scanning food into an app on your phone, because I've been that person as well. I've done it all.
Yeah.
And I actually think that damaged my relationship with food and my social experience more, in a way. And I'm really grateful now that it doesn't affect my life anymore. I don't weigh out my Cocoa Pops in the morning. I don't have Cocoa Pops, honestly, not every day.
Oh, you've revealed it now. That's it. The secret is out.
Do you know what? I'm just going to put this out there. I had Cocoa Pops the other day for the first time since I was probably about, 14 or something. And the nostalgia was incredible.
I know. It's amazing. For me, it's now and again, whenever I'm in a hotel, if I ever see Sugar Puffs, that was like the one breakfast cereal that my mum used to, you could never ever have. But if I was ever at friends and they had it, I would just take it down like nothing else. So we all have those kind of like nostalgic cereals.
Yeah.
But going back to your question about, I could really quickly present some of the data on diets, on Slimming World, and then address what you're saying a bit more generally in terms of counting calories or points. If we look at the data, you touched upon it at the beginning. We know that actually the research shows it's really clear, it's very consistent. Any type of diet can be effective in the short term, regardless of what diet you go on, low fat, low carb, high carb. People lose the largest amount of weight typically in the first 6 months, but as most of us know, the story doesn't end there. The majority of dieters regain any lost weight, and then multiple studies have found this to be the case. So really, from an empirical point of view, there's little support for even the notion that diets lead to lasting weight loss or health benefits. Then if we're looking at something like Weight Watchers or slimming clubs, the research shows that if you compare that to the NHS programs, people tend to lose a bit more weight. But the trend of weight gain and regain is the same. So even in a study that was looking at the data of Weight Watchers themselves, and it's published in the British Journal of Nutrition, it showed that after about 5 years, only 16% had actually remained below their goal weight. And there was another study that showed that in terms of lifetime Weight Watchers members, on average, participants regain about 3/4 of the original weight loss. And so even whenever you take the individuals, lifelong Weight Watchers members who are doing their best in the program, the majority still struggle and they don't achieve their own long-term weight goals. I actually read a really fascinating article, and it was Richard Samber was quoted in it, who was the finance director of Weight Watchers from the late 60s to early 90s. And he was saying that the company is successful because 84% have to come back and do it again. And that's where their business comes from. It comes from repeat business. And so taking a step more broadly to what you're saying, I think the main, I'm in line with you. One of the main problems about tracking and counting calories and any sort of points-based system is that the focus becomes on this sort of system of calories in, calories out. And so actually what it lends psychologically the mind to do is to try and cheat the system or outplay it or just become obsessed with it. And so I've spoken to so many people who go to, for example, a swimming club, and on the day that they're weighing themselves, they won't eat anything. They'll barely even have water. They'll go in and they'll weigh themselves, and if they've reached their inverted commas goal weight for that week, they'll then go and splurge and have a massive binge on fish and chips and ice cream and just eat as much as they can. Because it's sort of this like retaliation, or if they haven't, they'll feel so low and upset that they'll go and end up comforting themselves with food. And it doesn't encourage a balanced, healthy relationship with food, and it definitely doesn't encourage a focus on actually the nutrients and nourishment that food can provide. It just reduces it to numbers, which I actually think is really unhelpful.
I couldn't agree more. It completely negates the nutritional component of food, and
absolutely, and actually, the latest science shows that it's not the case that all calories are equal. We now know that if you have 200 calories of fresh fruit and vegetables, or 200 calories of extremely processed, high sugary foods, that they have different metabolic pathways in your body. And actually, whenever you eat higher quality, more wholesome, natural foods, not only are the health outcomes better, but the metabolism in your body is boosted, so we end up burning more calories. And so the same number of calories has a different effect on the body depending on what form it's in.
So I think we've kind of got to the bottom of the whole counting thing is not addressing the root cause of the problem. Doesn't matter what you're counting. If you were like me and had a terrible relationship with food, restriction, binge eating, thinking that I had to cut things out, and then following a set of calories and macros, whoever they are, following that for a good, probably a good couple of years, I realised that I was sort of pot kettle black a little bit, because here I was encouraging people to quit dieting, to learn about, really invest their own time and energy into learning about the basics of nutrition, the basics of how to create a meal that is nourishing for your body, how to start listening to how your environment can have an impact on what you eat and where you eat and how you eat, and all of these things that I know long term will benefit people's health and in turn weight and in turn health. And here I was scanning packets of food into my fitness pal, only eating out in restaurants that had the foods already in there so that I could track it, starving myself in the morning so that I could eat out at night. But it was okay because I was doing what everyone else was doing and I was putting it into my fitness pal. But at the end of the day, when I look back, I think, God, I really just was on a diet. I would starve myself in the morning so I could go to Nando's at night with my friends. I would there was so many behaviours. I would turn down nights out with friends because I thought I can't drink alcohol, because if I drink too much alcohol I won't have any calories left to eat breakfast. And when I look back I think, God, pot kettle black, Rach. And this is something that I see so much of at the moment, and it drives me nuts. I find it really hard to keep my mouth shut.
Well, I'm glad that you're not. I think it's important that you're sharing these really crucial, valuable insights and experiences that you've had that I think so many people will be able to relate to. And it's something that, from my own data, from the research, from interviewing participants on weight loss trials, to chatting to clients who that I'm helping one-on-one, is that they find it exhausting. It's tiring. Because it's like a continual struggle day in, day out, and it's a battle, and it's a fight. It's a fight to try and reduce your calories, and it's a fight to try and minimize this and restrict that, and it can take over your headspace, and it gets to the stage where some people just feel like, enough is enough. There has to be another way, and thankfully there is another way. Which I'm sure we'll be coming on to in more detail. But it starts with recognizing that actually everything that you're describing is part of the problem rather than part of the solution.
Definitely. So before we talk about the other way, I'm guessing, I'm just surmising that both of our ways of thinking are going to be quite similar.
Bloody well, I'd love it if they're completely different though.
Well,
like, what?
What do you think? So tell me what the other way is then. What people that are listening to this are probably been nodding their head for half an hour going, that's me, that's me, that's me. But when you're there, you can't believe that there is another way. First of all, can you live a healthier, happier lifestyle, lose weight and keep it off without counting anything, without dieting, without cutting anything out of your diet? Do you believe that is possible?
Absolutely. And more to the point, I would say that is one of the easiest, most sustainable ways to lose weight, keep it off, and feel happy. So, yes, there's three main pieces of advice that I would give. And the first we've touched upon is to really recognize that diets are not the answer, and that in the long run, going on another diet is actually going to hold you back from living the life that you want to live. And so it's about dropping this illusion that any short-term fix, whether it's a diet, a supplement, or any other fad that you read about or hear about, it can never be a long-term solution. We never brush our teeth intensely for 7 days and expect them to stay clean for the rest of our lives. And it's the same with health. And so the key is, it's not going to sound radically new. It's to have an overall healthy pattern of eating. And I would say, for example, 80% of the time. So really, for your day in, day out meals, because your health and your body is a byproduct of what we're doing day in, day out. It's what we're having for breakfast and lunch and dinner. So for these main meals, it's about focusing on having natural, wholesome, nutritious ingredients with as many fruit and vegetables as possible, whole grains, nuts, seeds, pulses, lentils, fish, whatever type of meats that you eat, or whether or not you're more plant-based or vegan, having that high quality protein, and really choosing the foods that you love and actually getting creative and creating recipes that you really enjoy. But then still allowing yourself that, when you're out with friends and you're having coffee, to have that slice of cake, when you're in a restaurant and your favorite dessert, sticky toffee puddings on the menu, to have that, to still allow yourself to enjoy all those foods, which, realistically, we know that if you ate every day isn't going to promote, fantastic health. But having it in balance, having it in moderation, and the way that I shift it with people to see foods as everyday foods and sometimes foods. They're those foods that you eat every day, and they're delicious and nutritious, and they're amazing for your body. and your mind. And then there's those other foods that actually, you're not going to get many people that say Ben and Jerry's is the cornerstone of a healthful diet. But I love ice cream. Like, ice cream's a massive part of what gives me pleasure. I love cake. I'm a huge cake fan. So I'll, once, sometimes twice a week, but every week I'll go and choose I've got a fantastic homemade cake shop, and just choose a slice that I love, and then take my time to sit down with a cup of tea and enjoy it and to savor it and not to feel guilty about it.
Yeah. I think
so. I'd say, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly how I live my life now as well. And I went so many years eating. Let's just take cake for an example. I'm not really a big cake fan. I know that's a bit strange. I prefer biscuits. But cake.
You're like my wife. She's a massive biscuit fan as well.
I always have a piece of cake, but I wouldn't enjoy it because the whole time that I was eating it, I would be looking at it thinking, I shouldn't be eating this.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be eating this. Or on the other side of things, I would eat it so quickly that I wouldn't even taste it. Just to get it out the way so that it's almost like it never happened. Whereas now it's not something I have every day. But if I want to have like a slice of cake or a couple of biscuits or a cup of tea, I will, like you say, actually sit down and enjoy it and taste it, and and I feel much more satisfied from that having that once or twice a week, maybe once a week, than I would having it every day and scoffing it down and forgetting that it even happened. Because but getting to that point can take time. Sorry for interrupting you. You touched on
nerve with that. No, at all. No, I'd much rather you. Like you're saying, it's about unlearning a lot of the programs, the mental programming we've received. I was talking to a client the other day, and she was saying, over the years she's picked up so many philosophies of diets that in her head almost everything is banned, and she felt so guilty about eating literally everything, even if it was fruit, and it'll be popping into her head, oh, but it's so high sugar, so I really shouldn't be eating this. Or if it's naturally, if it's cake, you're thinking, oh, this is breaking X, Y, and Z rules. Or if it's anything with fat in it, and actually, when we live our lives that way, it just becomes miserable because we're continually feeling bad, feeling like we're doing something wrong, that we're falling short, when actually we're doing the best we can, and food is there to be enjoyed. It's intrinsically pleasurable for a reason, and it can be a great source of pleasure and joy in your life. But the problem becomes is whenever we're relying on that too much, and it's the only way we have to manage our feelings or to deal with stress is by turning to food, then that's when things sort of get out of control. So like you're saying, though, it's about just finding your own balance, and that takes time, but still giving yourself that opportunity to really savor and enjoy your food, and to connect with that physical experience of it, rather than just living in our heads and beating ourselves up for what we're doing.
Yeah. Is there a process? Could you talk me through like the process that you might take someone through, just briefly, in order to get them from A to B? So from maybe perhaps someone that's been dieting, that's at that point, that's possibly scared to eat. What would be the first thing that you would address with someone? Or if there's someone listening and they're like, right, okay, I understand what you mean now, but where do I start?
Yes. Well, in terms of my clients, every individual is unique, and so they've got their own relationship with food and with themselves, and so I'd be working on tailoring what it is from wherever they are to wherever they want to go. So everyone's goals are different. But what I think would be helpful for your listeners would be a huge piece of advice would be to start small. So often we know that we think, right, I need to ditch the diets and I need to start living a healthier lifestyle. Everyone's talking about living a healthy lifestyle. But that can sound scary. changing your life sounds brutal. If someone said, okay, Ari, you need to change your life, I'd almost want to run it away. And so a crucial mistake that people can make when they're trying to either change their lifestyle or lose weight and keep it off is making radical changes, which often can't be maintained anyway. Yeah. So the key is to start small. It's just about a small, gradual change that will become a habit. Sustainable weight loss, long-term health, it's all about the long game. Mm-hmm. It's all about making little changes that compound over time and then lead to big results. And we know from the psychology of habits that the simpler the behavior, the easier it is for it to become second nature. So one of the things I'll do with clients is we'll just start with one meal of the day. We'll just look at, for instance, breakfast. And that's all we'll focus on, and just like, okay, how can I make this meal a little bit healthier? And create it that it's still something that I look forward to eating when I wake up and that I love the taste of, but it's also going to serve me in terms of helping me to achieve my goals. So, whether or not that's, so for instance, a breakfast like Special K is often a really popular choice. But actually what we find with something like Special K is that it spikes your blood sugar levels. It's got a high glycemic load, so then your insulin levels spike. And insulin is a fat-storing hormone, so it causes your body to hold on to fat. Whereas if you have something more like Greek yogurt with berries and oats on top, or porridge with peanut butter, that's going to have a different effect in terms of your metabolism and your hormone levels, and will help you to also feel fuller for longer. Mm-hmm. So just starting small, starting with one meal and see what can I do to make it a bit more healthy. Or, how can I just become a little bit more active? So if I'm not doing any exercise, how can I just go for 1 5-minute walk once a day? And it's about choosing something that's such a small step from your current routine that it would almost be difficult to say no to it.
Mm-hmm. And then once you have instilled that habit, then build on it from there.
Absolutely, because two things will happen. One, it will start to shift that sense of how you're viewing yourself and saying, actually, gosh, I've got this under control. I'm making that healthy. And when it becomes a natural habit, it doesn't require willpower anymore. The beauty of habits is it doesn't require you to even think about it. It's just what you do on a daily basis. You get up and you have that breakfast, and it's a part of your natural day. And then you can look at, potentially your lunch or your evening supper. And when someone's doing a 5-minute walk, you think, well, actually, I can do 10 minutes. Or, there's an exercise class I really want to go to, or I love dance. It's about finding the joy and just gravitating towards things that actually inspire you and light you up, and that you'd be happy to do, whether or not it led to weight loss or not. It's just something that you enjoy doing. And so just by slowly creating your life in this way, it'll drive you towards your goals in a much easier, more sustainable way.
Yeah. It's a hard sell though, isn't it, in the world that we live in these days? The sort of quick fix mentality and the instant gratification. It's all we can do is carry on spreading the word about how important it is to think about doing these things one at a time. And
definitely. And it's being honest with ourselves. Take a look at where we are right now. Has our current strategy helped? Or have we tried diet after diet after diet, and yet we're more miserable and heavier than we've ever been before? Mm-hmm. And it's just realizing that we've got a choice now. We can keep on doing the same thing and essentially getting the same results, or we can actually take the pressure off, realize that it's about the long game. It's not about what I'm doing next week and next month. It's what am I doing in 6 months and in 6 years' time and potentially 6 decades' time, depending on how old you are. Mm-hmm. It's about what we're doing, day in, day out. And so often when anyone that I'm working with is going to make a change, I say to them, run it through 3 questions. 1, will I enjoy making this change? Is it something that actually, is going to bring either happiness or a sense of satisfaction once I've achieved it. So, you've got some people that enjoy doing HIIT classes, and, they might not enjoy doing the HIIT class, but afterwards they've got a really great sense of satisfaction of doing it. The second one is it something which I could be doing in a year's time? Because if it's not, and you're only going to last for a month, I'd say don't even go there. And the third is, if someone that I really love and care about came to me and said, look, I'm thinking about making this change, would I say to them, yeah, I think that's a good idea? Or deep down, would I be thinking, I'm just not sure that is a very healthy thing to do? Because whenever we're so focused on the outcome, it can often drive us to make, decisions which just deep down we don't feel good about.
Yeah, I absolutely love those 3 questions. That's amazing.
Great.
I'm going to write them.
Yeah.
I'm going to write them into the show
and
notes.
Use them. Feel free to use them with clients. One of the things that I'd also recommend is taking one of the courses at the Ditch the Diet Academy. Going back to basics, like you're talking about, learning the basics of nutrition. I know that you're helping hundreds and inspiring thousands of people to change their lifestyle and to help them to see that actually you can get off that yo-yo diet roller coaster and that there's a life outside of restricted diets. So, yeah, feel free to note those questions down and use them whenever.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It's been really nice to chat to you. If anyone who is listening wants to know more about what you do and how to get in touch with you, sort of follow you on Instagram, things like that, what's the best way to do that?
Yes, follow me on Instagram. I'm presumably able to pick up the different links, or check out my website, and they can sign up to send information out. I'm also writing my method as a book right now, and I'll be coming out with a digital program later on in the year, so I can keep people updated with that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
No, at all.
So I guess all that's left to say is another big thank you to Dr Aria for coming onto the podcast today and sharing his knowledge, and it's just been such a pleasure to speak to someone who has such alignment with the same way that I think and the same beliefs that I have surrounding dieting, and the fact that it is possible to get out of this yo-yo diet cycle that you're in. It is possible to let go of food guilt. It is possible to actually enjoy, socialising again, improving your confidence, and all of this is possible whilst, not counting anything, not obsessing over food. You can learn to put this behind you and in your past, and that is exactly why I created the Ditch the Diet Academy, and that is to actually give you a structured educational process that takes you from A to B, so where you are now to where you want to be, covering everything in between, showing you exactly how to build a diet that suits you, to build a meal, a set of meals that you enjoy, learn how to eat out again, how to incorporate foods that you enjoy into your diet without feeling guilty, improve your relationship with food, address emotional eating, and lots and lots and lots more, including all sorts of extras like access to myself as your coach. We have monthly recipe packs, we have monthly guest webinars, guest coaches, and so much more. And if you would like to find out more about joining the Ditch the Diet Academy, just scroll down on wherever you are listening to the podcast right now. I'll leave the link in the show notes. It's just simply ditchthedietacademy.com/DTD-academy. That will take you to the Academy page where you can find out more and sign up yourself. Again, if you would like to find out more about what Aria does, also all of the links are in the show notes. And I'll be back again next week with another episode of the podcast. Until then, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to leave me a 5-star review as well. Much appreciated. See you next week. Take care.